Hi, I'm Kate from dailytarotgirl.com, and in this video I want to talk to you about what to do if your client doesn't like their tarot reading from you. So if you give a tarot reading and your client is unhappy, what should you do in that situation? Should you give them a refund? How do you deal with that? The number one biggest problem with this whole scenario is that this can be really damaging to your confidence as a tarot reader. So I want to address that as well as how you deal with that when someone is really unhappy with your reading. So first I want to share a story. So this happened to me a few weeks ago. I did a tarot reading for a friend of a friend, and she wanted to know about this guy that she just met. She just met this guy and she really liked him, and they hadn't even gone on a date yet. They were going to go on a date in a few days, and she wanted to know if he was the one and if things were going to work out with him. And so I did the reading, and I got all really crappy cards. I got the Tower, Five of Cups, and what was the last one? 10 of Swords. So really, really crappy reading. And I just looked at those cards and I said to her, and I don't usually say this in readings. I don't normally just come out and say something negative, but I looked at the cards and I said, honestly, I don't think this is really going to work out. And then, I went into each card and stuff, but she was totally upset. She just looked at me like, what? It's not going to work out? And she just didn't want to hear anything that went against her belief that this guy was the one and only person for her. And so it was a really kind of frustrating reading in that regard. And when I was finished the reading, I could tell she was kind of disappointed. And we ended it on a positive note. I did a reading on another topic for her, and we ended it on a positive note, and she said thank you, that's given me lots to think about, and she went on her way. But I could tell that she was disappointed. I could tell that I didn't say what she wanted to hear, and she was just disappointed in her reading. And as a tarot reader, I hate that feeling that I've disappointed someone. I want to give someone a great reading, and I want to give them all these juicy details, and I want them to go away feeling, inspired and with all these, new ideas. And I hate it when I feel like my reading did not do that for someone. So that's my story. And so the first thing you do when you have a situation like that, the first thing you want to do is you want to ask yourself, was this a bad reading skill-wise? As in, was the reading actually bad on my part? Did I not do a good job interpreting the cards? This happens for all kinds of readings, or reasons. This happens for all kinds of reasons. So you might be tired, you're just having an off day, there's something that's on your mind that's upsetting you, or the person in front of you is just really hard to do a reading for. So I've done plenty of readings that I felt weren't very good on my part, skill-wise, and I thought, oh geez, I should have said this, I should have said that, I didn't quite do that right. But the person that I'm reading for seems totally thrilled with their reading, and they seem inspired and engaged. So I think, okay, that's fine, they seem happy. And then I've done readings where I feel like, I'm just like patting myself on the back. I'm like, wow, I did a really good reading. Good job, Kate. And the person I'm reading for is sitting there just looking completely underwhelmed and unimpressed. So that's something to keep in mind. Just because you think you didn't do a good job on a reading doesn't mean the person you're reading for thought that. And just because you think you did a really awesome reading doesn't mean the person you gave that reading to agrees. So that's the first question, is ask yourself, like, was this actually a bad reading? Or did I just not say what my client wanted to hear? Because oftentimes clients come to a reading and they have an agenda. They have something that they want you to tell them. And it's almost like they have this wish in their minds, and they think, if I get a tarot reading and the reader confirms this, then it will be more true. And these are the worst kinds of clients to read for. They're so frustrating because if you don't tell them what they want to hear, they're going to be angry at you or disappointed and just think that it was a crappy reading. So that's something to keep in mind. And just because your client was disappointed in the reading and just because you didn't say what they wanted you to say does not mean that your reading wasn't good. The next thing you want to ask yourself when you do a reading like this is there anything that I could have done differently in this situation that would have made for a better reading or a happier client? Now, in my situation, I think that my biggest mistake was that I focused the reading too much on the future. So she came to me asking about the potential of a future relationship. This wasn't even a relationship that she was in yet. And so yeah, I think I made a mistake there because it's kind of tricky to read that far into the future. And whenever we focus our reading too much on the future, I think that we disempower ourselves. Our point of power is always in the now, and the future changes based on the energies of the present moment and the choices we make and the thoughts and feelings we have. All of those things shape the future. So I feel like doing a reading about the future, not only is it not going to be super accurate, but it's disempowering because it makes that assumption that the future is set in stone and that our actions and our thoughts and our beliefs and our feelings have no bearing on what happens. And that's not true. We have an enormous, effect and power over how things turn out. So I think that we disempower ourselves when we focus reading on the future. And unfortunately, that's what I did. And I'm always telling people not to do this. And I went and did it. Didn't even realize I was doing it till after. So that was my number one biggest mistake. Another mistake, which I don't know if this is really a mistake or not, but sometimes you can spot the difficult clients ahead of time. So I knew when she came for the reading that she had an agenda, that there was something specific she wanted me to say in that reading. And I should have known better, and I should have thought, this person may be not a good candidate for a reading. I think she's going to be disappointed. Sometimes you can pick that up from someone, and if you can avoid giving that person a reading, by all means, do so. Or don't do so. Don't give them a reading. So that was another thing. And the next thing I want to talk about is what you need to do in order to take care of yourself after something like this happens. Because especially if you're a new reader, a negative experience like this can really put you off of doing readings for other people. And I want to make sure that doesn't happen to you. So the one thing that I find is helpful is I like to set an intention before I do a reading. So usually even before the client arrives or before I'm talking with the client, I set this intention that whatever comes up in the reading, whatever cards come up and whatever I happen to say in that reading, that is what that client is meant to hear at this time. And that kind of lets me off the hook a little bit. I won't be, like after the reading is over, I find that I'm not dwelling on it and thinking, oh, I should have said this, I shouldn't have said that, because I've said that little prayer, I've set that intention at the beginning of the reading. So that's one thing that's helpful. The other thing is having clear boundaries and knowing what your role is as a tarot reader. So your role as a reader is to look at the cards that come up and interpret them to the best of your abilities. And for me, I feel like my role is also to interpret them in a way that, is going to feel empowering. That's not always possible, but if it is, then I feel like that's my role. I think it's also my role to kind of help the client get some new ideas and some inspiration and look at a situation in a different kind of way. However, your job is not to fix your client's problems. And if you have a client who comes to you with this agenda, with this idea of something they want you to say, it's not your job to mirror what they want just to make them happy. You don't want to just interpret a tarot reading in a positive way just to make that person happy, even if, it goes against what you're actually getting from the cards. So I feel like my role as a reader is to be honest when the cards come up and to interpret them in a way that hopefully will feel empowering for the client and not totally terrifying. I think that we do have that responsibility as tarot readers to not terrify our clients by saying something really, scary and foreboding. But it's not your job to say what your client wants to hear, or to fix that person's problems, or to provide pat answers to big problems, because sometimes you'll have a client who has some huge issue, some huge problem, and they want an answer to it, and it's just not going to be possible to give them an answer with a tarot reading. And lastly, it's important to learn from your bad experiences. So if you have a reading like this where you feel that your client was disappointed, or you feel like you didn't deliver a good reading, just kind of look at it and think, is there anything I could have done differently here? What would have made it better? And this isn't about beating yourself up or trying to, be perfect. It's just about kind of learning from your mistakes, and I think there's a lot of value in looking back and kind of analyzing your reading and seeing, if there's anything that you could have done differently, because then next time you do a reading and you're in a similar situation, you might remember that. So I want to turn this conversation over to you, and I want to ask you if you've ever had that experience of giving a tarot reading to someone and having them be totally disappointed or unsatisfied with their reading. And if you feel like sharing, please share in the comments below. And thank you so much for watching. My name's Kate. I'm from dailytarotgirl.com, and you can check out my website for all kinds of fun tarot learning resources. I've got free tarot spreads, I've got tarot learning videos, tarot card meetings, all that stuff on my website. So once again, thank you for watching, and have a good week.